3 o'clock. Good afternoon. Welcome to my session about systems thinking and Scrum. My name is SGLASslilja. I work as an Agile coach and a Scrum trainer at Reactor in Finland. That's 10 time zones away from here, so it's 1 a.m. for me. Before we get started about systems thinking and Scrum, I will tell you a little story that happened to me a few years ago. At 2008, I was working in a large multinational company as a department manager. We were doing Scrum transformation at that time. So Scrum was everywhere. We had Scrum teams, product owners, backlogs. Management team was busily solving coding payments. The project managers were having daily stand-up meetings. And we were consuming post-it notes on an increasing rate. Then in one of the management team meetings, where department heads and program managers met, somebody asked me that, hey, Sami, you are the Scrum expert. How do you do resource allocations in Scrum? And I was shocked. Well, firstly, it's people, not resources, of course. And secondly, we don't do this kind of resource allocation in Scrum. I was mumbling something about velocity and backlog and product owner and definition of done and self-organized teams. And when I lift my head, I could see everybody in the meeting room staring at me. And I could read in their eyes, they were thinking, that guy is crazy. How come you can do any project without resource allocations? And while the topic was small, I thought that it's something significant. And what happened there was a collision of two systems. More precisely, it was a collision of two ways of thinking. My thinking about short iteration, quick learning, experimentation, and coping with uncertainty. And the other people's thinking about planning, allocation, predictability, and control. So I'm going to talk about system conditions in Scrum. If you remember yesterday's keynote from Jeff Sutherland, he at some point mentioned that the problem is that we are doing bad Agile. Agile would work, but for some reason we are doing bad Agile. And I try to give answers, why are we doing bad Agile, and how we could fix it. So my topic today will be, what is systems? So definition for the word system, and what are system conditions? How systems impact Scrum implementation, and how could we use Scrum to help in the bigger picture? And at the end, I have a confession to make. So what is a system? This is a definition from Russell Aikoff. A system, to his words, is a collection of parts that are interdependent. And the parts in the system interact in such a way that it affects the capabilities and qualities of the entire system. So parts can be taken separately, but parts alone do not fulfill the function that the system has. Al Shalway was yesterday showing a picture about an airplane that was taken apart. Similarly, you can think about a car or a human being. If you separate the parts, it no longer is what is it as a whole system. And when we are talking about social systems, such as organizations and companies, they have a purpose, a defined purpose that they are trying to fulfill. And here's a nice quote from Russell Aikoff about system not being some of its parts, but actually a product of their interactions. So systems thinking, in my opinion, is about this relatedness, how things work together, rather than studying and analyzing parts taken separately. When we start to look at systems and then start to improve systems, we have to decide what system we are studying. At some level, all the systems are interconnected. Maybe the universe is the only independent system. Everything is a subsystem of something. So it's very important to define boundaries of what we are looking at. Here is a system. This could be a company or a product owner. And this is a system as well. This could be a department or team inside a larger system. These green bubbles together could be a system. They could be two companies who are competing or collaborating and somehow interacting with each other, so we could study that one. Or we could study the overlapping part when we choose the boundaries, we also choose what system we are studying. If we are choosing too narrow boundaries, for example, we are studying only one team or looking at one team only, that might not have a purpose that is significant. And if we take too wide concept, it also might lose the purpose. So we want to have a significant or meaningful purpose for a system, and then we choose to set boundaries around the system that we are studying. Another interesting property of systems is the cause-effect relations. If something happens in the system, there's an issue or problem, we could go and track backwards what is causing it. So we have a cause for this problem, and we could track further, and we have another cause which is causing the cause that is causing the problem. And we could ask the other way around as well. So what? So any issue has an impact, and that impact has yet another impact. But remember, the parts in the system are interdependent, but they are connected. So we might have a cause deeper down in the chains that is actually causing the issue. Or impact also causes part of the issue. Or impact causes something that causes the issue. And these loops can be very, very long. A corollary of this one is that if you want to change or improve the system, there is a rule that getting rid of something that you don't want does not guarantee that you get what you do want. And that's kind of simple, that if you have a pain in your left hand, left arm, so cutting it off is not the solution to fix the entire system. In yesterday's keynote, Jeff was saying that one company, they stopped doing overtime, and immediately their productivity tripled. So don't be surprised if it doesn't happen in your organization. Getting rid of something that you don't want doesn't give you what you do want. Similarly, taking a bad cause away, the problem maker away from the team, does not mean that the team will start working perfectly together. So the cause-effect relationships are cyclic, not linear. So when I'm talking about systems today, I'm talking about social systems, companies and organizations. So no matter what is the organizational structure, what are the boundaries that you set around your system, that's what we're talking today. And here's a quote from Deming, a famous quality thinker, a systems thinker, and he has said, "A bad system defeats a good person every time." Al Shalaway was talking yesterday in his systems thinking speech that there are two conditions that we need to have for good performance. And it's we need to have both good system and good people. If you have a bad system, it will defeat good people. And if you have good system but bad people, that won't work either. People, of course, create the system, and in knowledge work, people create value, what comes out of the system. But still, it is this system as a whole which produces the result and not the individuals. Again, the connectedness and not the parts taken separately. Here is an example of a system. This is a very simple one. Let's imagine we have a software engineer named Joe. He's working in a team, and they are doing a IT system for a retailer. So customers can log on there and order IT products, phones and computers and stuff like that, and order them all online. So the team has a product owner, and the product owner has, for example, a help desk who is feeding work for the team, and there are customers who are asking new features, either directly or indirectly by complaining to help desk, and then they decide to implement something in the IT system. There are also suppliers and logistics department who are giving requirements for the system that they need to fulfill internally, like billing or logistics or warehouse or whatever. Now, here's a customer who has a need. For example, she says that I would like to see where my mail order is coming, when will you ship it, and when is the estimated time that I get it. Okay, the product owner decides, hey, that's a cool idea, let's put it in the backlog. If you look at the system, there could cause that Joe and the team cannot complete the work well. For example, they are delayed, there's bad quality, or they are doing something else that the customer wants. Pick a pair here, someone, and take 1 minute to talk what in this setting could cause that Joe cannot complete his work with high quality.
The request of the customer.
The request of the customer is, for example, is following the status of the order. So pick a pair here, you 1 or 2 minutes. What things could go wrong in this system? Okay, what things could happen in this system? Anything?
The product backlog is a mess.
The product backlog is a mess. Okay, what else?
Too many interdependencies with relationships among suppliers, etc.
Yes, for example, difficult to prioritize between different requests. Yes, what else?
The team can be dysfunctional.
Yeah. Yeah, they have bad working habits. Yeah, what else?
What ended up in the backlog wasn't what the customer actually wanted.
Yes, so unclear requirements. Yes, what else? Sorry?
Dissatisfied customers.
Dissatisfied customer, yeah.
There are no two-way communication systems.
So like a feedback, yes.
Unclear requirements.
Unclear requirements. Yeah. Anything else?
Joe cannot read English.
Yeah. So Joe's competency is something that is required for the work. Okay. Here are some things that I've collected when I run this exercise in my workshops. Just some things that you said and some things that came out and some things that are missing. But basically there are a lot of things that could cause the work of Joe and the team to be not satisfactory. Now, what causes this? Whose fault is this? If we basically have two baskets. We have a system, so the existing organization, practices, policies, tools and everything. And the other basket is Joe. That's Joe's fault. Let's see. Clarity of customer request. System, right?
No, Joe.
Joe's fault, yeah, of course. So you can go to Joe and say, hey, work harder. Communication channels. System. Quality of backup. Other items in the backlog. System. Team working practices. System. Tools. Pressure. Dependencies. Process and working practices. Interrupt. It could be Joe. Maybe he could close Facebook or do Pomodoros. But on the other hand, there's also a system. How much ongoing work you have at your hand, and you just have to switch between tasks. Bonuses, system. Responsibility sharing. Priorities of work. Okay, maybe not work-related issues. Well, this is not work system, and this is not Joe's fault, I hope. It's another system. It's a private life, home, or whatever system that causes that. Code base system. Joe's competency. little bit joke. But how often do you get all the training that you want? So there's a limitation in the system that you don't get enough training or enough interesting assignments. Product owner's competency? System. Yeah, these are the things that cause problems in the team's work. Most of them are caused by systems. So most of the unwanted issues in the organization and results are caused by the system itself. Therefore, it is important that we understand the system and we fix system instead start to fix individuals and their work.
No, Joe goes to training.
Joe goes, they only fire Joe because he was interrupting his work. Okay, what creates organization? What do we have to do? What do we do in order to create an organization structure? We do thinking. So we have certain thinking in our head. We have certain assumptions about cause-effect relationship, what is effective and what is not. And by this thinking, we create a system, and that system, as I said earlier, creates the sustainable performance of the organization. I claim that thinking is important. Why would it be important? I mean, if we just take a really good system, a really good framework like Scrum, then it fixes all the problems, right? About thinking, let's go to London, 1854. At that time in London there was a cholera epidemic. The germs theory was not known at that time, so everybody thought that cholera diseases are caused by miasmas, so bad vapors that are in the air. And to prevent to get ill, you just move away from the city. That's the way to do it. Rich people did it, and they did not get ill. Obviously, miasmas were the cause of the illness. There's one gentleman called John Snow who started to study a little bit more carefully what happened in the cholera epidemic. So he went to see, to the real place, Soho, what happened there. And here's the map of the cholera epidemic, and the black dots are the houses where people infected with cholera. So he studied how people were living there, and he found out that all these houses were using the same water pump to get their water. So John Snow thought that maybe water has something to do with this. And then he did an experiment. He removed the handle of the water pump so that people needed to walk several blocks away to get drinking water. And the epidemic stopped. So what happened there was that there was current thinking, current assumptions about cause-effect relationships, and that created actions, move away, clear the air. And that had consequences. And if we want to improve something radically, should we change this? You know, instead of moving away from city, we just wave our hands really fast so that miasmas go away. Or should we change our assumptions about cause-effect relationships? So basically, in order to change and improve, we have to change thinking so that we can create new kind of system. So let's get 150 years forward to the management meeting that I was sitting. The questions that I got there, they were like, how do we make resource planning in Scrum? What are project manager tasks in Scrum? Who assigns tasks in Scrum? All of those were a result of current thinking. Scrum was being applied under current assumption of cause-effect relationships. Like there has to be a project manager, therefore, what does project manager do in Scrum? There has to be task assigner, manager or something. Okay, who is the manager in Scrum? It was pretty impossible to deploy real Scrum in that kind of environment. Okay, so we want to improve. We want to improve the system, but how can we see the system? What is a system? There's a concept of system conditions, and system conditions are tangible, visible, observable items. They are direct or indirect results of design and management of work. So things that we can see, things that we can observe. Here are some system conditions. Familiar? Processes, tools, organizational structure, offshoring, outsourcing, using projects to deliver software. Why would we need to be interested in system conditions? Well, firstly, they drive the organization performance, either positively or negatively. So system conditions themselves, they are not positive or negative, but the impact to the performance is neither positive or negative. Secondly, improving the work requires that we change at least some of the system conditions that we consider harmful. And thirdly, this is very interesting, system conditions tell us about management thinking. They tell us about how the decision makers think. In Bill Joyner's keynote just a few moments ago, he was talking about organizational culture and agile leadership. I think he was also saying that it's about thinking that creates the leadership. So through system conditions, we understand how leaders see the cause-effect relations. Unfortunately, often, problems in the organizations, they are addressed to individuals. They are people problems, motivational problems, competency problems. Now here's a quote from John Sedan, who says, people issues are not the point of intervention. So if you want to intervene, if you want to improve the organization, we probably cannot do it by just going to people and saying, hey, could you please be more motivated? Could you please think faster? If the cause of demotivation or if the cause of failures and problems is, for example, one department sitting in Seattle and the other one in Beijing, and they have very poor lines between, then it doesn't help that you go and say that, hey guys, keep up the good work, if the system condition remains. So what do we have in these harmful system conditions? The problem is lack of knowledge. People who are designing the system and doing the thinking are not aware of the real nature of the work. So people who are designing processes and organization charts and assigning priorities and bonuses don't understand what is really going on in the system. They don't know how the work works. But how can we change the system conditions? I said earlier we have to change thinking, but by what method? And I claim Scrum is not the method to change thinking. This quote is from Scrum Alliance webpage. Scrum is a framework for completing complex projects. Scrum has a lot of good things that you can use to change thinking, but as such, Scrum is not a change process. We can change thinking through three strategies. We can have a coercive strategy, we can force changes upon people. So these are organization changes or process deployments or things like this. You do this and you get a reward, or if you don't do this, you will be punished. The second one is rational change. We explain people the good things that will happen. And then when they understand, they will change. This assumes that people have already changed their thinking, and the only thing that is blocking them is lack of knowledge about, for example, how do I deal with large items in the backlog. And I give a rational explanation about that, and that's it. The most effective way to change thinking is normative learning, where we change our norms. We change our assumptions about what is happening around us. An example, you have a candle and a fire and a small child. Coercive learning would be, don't touch it. If you touch it, there's no pudding for you after dinner, right? Of course. Rational would be, my dear child, the fire is very hot, it will burn your skin, and that will cause you a severe pain that you will feel in your body, don't touch it. Normative learning is, okay, the kid sticks his finger in the fire, immediately changes his assumptions about safety of the fire, and well, cries a little and learns a lot. Okay, I'll be talking now about systems, system thinking and change. So back to the big picture, how Scrum would help. There are two strategies. Scrum itself changes certain system conditions. It changes certain harmful system conditions that come to use just by using Scrum. But much more effective is that Scrum has mechanisms that allow normative change and normative learning. So, Scrum process is here. What changes could happen? We could move from competing projects to one backlog. We could move from project management to product ownership, from handoffs to collaborative planning, from siloed functional teams to cross-functional teams. We could get faster feedback cycles. We go from problem hiding to culture of learning, and we go from project model to continuous delivery. All of these things could happen if you just deploy Scrum. Now, if you think of the word deploy Scrum, is it normative learning? It could be really close to coercive learning. And I heard, for example, in yesterday's keynote, something about people are not doing Scrum right, and that's why they fail. I think it's a slightly dangerous way to put it. That okay, if you succeeded, you did it right, but if you don't succeed, you did it wrong. It's your fault. It could be rational. If people already know that, hey, but we have to do something, something like collaborate more and deliver faster, and so can you tell us a way? Yeah, it could be a rational change, but much more effective would be to make a normative change, see the system conditions, and make change through that. And I've collected here 3 things that I find most useful in Scrum. One is understanding purpose and demand. As I said earlier in the first slide, a social system has a purpose. So what we can do here is that when we understand the demand from the customer, what kind of things they want for us, we can create a purpose to our system, a purpose statement in customer terms. What customer wants from us. And then we can self-organize. Scrum allows us adaptive process development so that we can adapt our work to fit the incoming demand. So Scrum helps us to adjust to demand. And when we know what is our purpose, we can then select the measurements that measure our performance against the purpose. Velocity is often mentioned as a measure. How many customers, by the way, want velocity? I have not yet any. So velocity may not be the best possible measure. And by the way, this demand analysis and thinking about purpose, it's a great exercise in retrospectives, for example. You could study what kind of customers you have and what kind of work you have, and is your work organized against the demand? The other thing is transparency and visibility that Scrum provides. Chris Argyris, in his double loop learning, he says that these things are needed to learn. We need valid information, so I need valid information for me so that I will change my thinking. If another person says something that I don't buy, I don't believe it. So valid information, then freedom to make informed choice, and constant monitoring of actions. We have retrospectives, we have reviews, we can get valid information there. And we can get frequently monitoring of our actions. Are we going in the right direction? By the way, how do you know you are doing Scrum right? If somebody would ask me, are you doing Scrum right? The best answer I got from a colleague of mine who is sitting there in the 3rd row, he said to me that if you, at the end of each iteration, if you know exactly where you are, then you are doing Scrum right. And I will link these all to purpose. What is the purpose of the organization or the system that we have? We collect valid information regarding purpose, we monitor our actions against purpose, and we want to have full transparency against our purpose. And then we can learn. The third thing, and my favorite, is experiments. Scrum brings iterations and sprints to the system. And that's a great excuse to try new things. Many organizations are striving for harmony, and they are striving for big upfront planning so that they won't make any mistakes. But with Scrum, I can go and say, hey, how about we try this for one sprint? If it doesn't work, then we abandon it. So experimenting is a very powerful tool. It gives us 3 things. First, as I said, it's a good excuse to start using something new without need to convince that this is going to be forever. The second thing is, it gives us input for normative learning. We try something and we see what happens, and then we see that how the system is working. And the third thing is, since every sprint is an experiment, we can give the organization a culture of experimentation. So that when we do enough experiments, then everybody in the organization starts to say, hey, let's do an experiment. Let's try this out. And this is what we want to get. We want to get away from fail-safe design and get instead safe-to-fail experiments, a lot of them. So to summarize, organizations are systems created by thinking, and a bad system defeats good people every time. System conditions help us to see the system and understand the thinking of management, and in order to change, we have to change thinking, and we prefer doing it normally. And Scrum helps to see, and Scrum helps to stick with the new thinking. Okay, then the confession. It's not about Scrum. It's about system that dictates the performance of the organization. And I have found useful that every now and then I raise my head from Scrum and look at the system. That helps a lot.